Welcome to this video on how to answer the different types of questions in the Unit 1, the Business Environment exam. I'm not going to be going through the actual answers to this paper. It's more of a case of setting out how you can write to gain maximum marks. So the first section of the paper is section A, which is multiple choice. In this section, you have 20 questions where you are simply required to put a tick in the box next to one correct answer. If by chance you do go wrong on this particular section, then please obviously cross out your original answer and add the new tick, making sure that the old one is crossed out. It is good exam practice not to leave any of the questions unanswered. Therefore, if you do not know the answer, please try and use like process of elimination. So you may not know what the answer is, but you may have an idea that it's definitely not some of the answers, and that way you may be able to whittle it down to your final answer. But as I say, please do not leave any blank. It could be the difference between one grade and the next grade up. Moving on to section B, this is the section where you have carried out the research from the pre-release, and the questions in your particular section will be relevant to the research that you've been asked to carry out. As we go through looking at the different numbered questions, it gives you an idea of how you should attempt to answer. So on this first question, you've been asked to identify one financial aim and one non-financial aim. Therefore, you simply put the name of the business in for who you're going to use for this question. And for activity of the business, this is not actually marked, but what it does is it gives the examiner an idea of what the business does, particularly if it's a business that they're unfamiliar with. So in here you can put retail, you could put online business, you could put restaurant. Okay, so just bear in mind that something is expected in that area, but it doesn't necessarily have to be an explanation of any kind. So for this 2-mark question, we're simply going to use the structure where we have point, explain, example, analysis leading to. But for this one, because it's only for 2 points and we've been asked to make 2 points, we don't need any explanation. Therefore, we can just simply state our point, and that would be sufficient to gain the 2 marks. The next question, however, is for 4 marks, and you can see here that they're asking for you to explain 2 likely consequences. Therefore, again, we're going to use our point, explain, example, analysis leading to structure. But because it's only for 4 points, we can simply use the point, explain, example, and then do it again for the second point, point, explain, example, and that would then get us the full 4 points. This 4-mark question is using the command verb to describe, and therefore we're still going to use our exam structure. So think about point, explain, example, for this particular question, but instead of explaining, we're describing. So when you're describing, you're using descriptive language. So think about if you were trying to describe a biscuit, like a digestive, how would you describe that biscuit? Well, it's round. It has the word digestive printed onto it. It has little holes on the top of the surface, and when you dunk it into tea, it goes a bit sloppy and sometimes breaks. This is like descriptive language. It's not a list because it's more than a list, because you've got words in between connecting those sentences. So just be aware that you would still be making your point. You would then use your descriptive language. to give your example and your explanation. Now, the next question is a 6-mark question, and this is where we start to look at analysis. So again, point, explain, example, analysis, leading to. And here we have to analyse 2 sources of finance for that particular business. Therefore, you would obviously make your first point of what you're going to analyse, explain it through with an example, and then why is that good for that particular business in terms of its expansion plans, and then what does that lead to? And then once you finish with that particular point, you then go on to the second point and do exactly the same. So the next type of finance, explain it through, give an example, why is this a good type of finance, and what does this lead to for the business? Again, if you are able to obviously follow that structure, you should be able to gain the full 6 marks. Here we have another question, which is a 4-mark question, and this is an explaining question. Therefore, we can just do a point explain. But what I would suggest is you make your explanation as detailed as possible, because as you can see, this is worth 4 marks, but they're not asking you to do more than one thing to explain. Therefore, you're going to have to make sure you've got really good explanations, some examples in there, just so that you basically fill up the gap on these writing lines so that they can award you the 4 points. That's the end of section B. So we're now on to section C. And as you may be aware, you will be given an unseen case study. I have done a separate video on how you should actually mark up the case study and how you're using the case study to answer the following questions. I always suggest that you mark the case study up first, get your feet with understanding what the business is doing, and also to understand the problems that the business are having before you actually look at any of the questions in the paper. Because once you've understood the business, the questions in theory should be easier to answer. You're not flipping backwards and forwards trying to actually find the answers to the questions, because you know exactly what is going on in this business. Always remember, they're looking for you to actually show that you have used the case study as well, hence why marking up the case study is really important, particularly around any numbers, because this proves that you're using details from the case study in the answers that you're going to be giving. Remember as well, you may be required, like in this one, to actually read from a graph. Therefore, you need to understand how to read a graph, and they tend to be quite simple, but just make sure that you are pretty familiar with what the graph is telling you and read the key to the graph and the axes. And again, if you're not too sure, you know, say for example on 2013, you're not really sure what the blue column is because it looks slightly under 50,000. There's not really a good enough scale on here to sort of get the details. You know, just try and sort of use your pen and sort of, you know, draw a sort of line over to the 50,000 and try and sort of estimate, oh, it could be about 48, 49,000 there. Okay, so let's have a look at the different types of questions. So this one, again, it's a 1-point question for 26. So again, no explanation needed. You're just identifying, so you can simply write your point in there. Job done. The next question, though, again, it is an explaining question for 2 points. Therefore, we're going to use our point explain and answer this question. Again, the explanation, the point is going to get you the 1 mark and the explanation will get you the second part there. Again, remember, as you're answering these, it may well be that you can pull some information from the case study that's going to back up your answers. Question 28, we've got to identify two things. So again, they don't require any explanation, so we can simply state our points to gain the 2 marks. But here we have the 12-mark question, which we're going to use our full exam structure in order to answer this. So as I say, I have done a separate video on how to answer a 12-mark structure, but to briefly sort of go through it, you will be doing point, explain, example, analysis leading to for your first point. You're going to then do exactly the same for a second paragraph, and then you're going to go into your evaluation as your third paragraph. And within that evaluation, you're going to basically say which one you think is the biggest consequence in this question for them failing to comply with the Data Protection Act. So out of your 2 points, you're picking your best point and moving forward with that conclusion. But as I say, look at the 12-mark video for more detail on how to do that. For question 29, again, it's just identify, so you can just put the answer, no further explanation. And then on this next question, on B, you're explaining one likely drawback and one likely benefit. So they're giving you the instructions here, so you don't need to put your point. You're straight into your explanation, and you're going to do that for your drawback, and then you're going to do that for your benefit for the 4 marks. So for the next 12-mark question, you can assume that you're going to be looking at financial information, and as a result of that financial information, you are then going to obviously answer the question. So that's using the graph in this particular section, I do believe. But again, you're going to use the 12-mark structure, point, explain, example, analysis leading to for your first paragraph. Then for your second paragraph, exactly the same, into your conclusion of which one you think is the biggest impact for that particular question. We then have to state the meanings. So again, what does this mean? So you just need to know the definitions of these particular 2 words, and that will get you 2 points. In the next section, we are talking, again, just putting a point in one aspect of a financial performance for 2016 that's worsened and one that's improved. So again, no explanation needed. You're just picking out information and making your point. We then have the other 12-mark question here, which again, using the case study, you're going to use the exam structure, point, explain, example, analysis leading to, another paragraph of point, explain, example, analysis and leading to, and then come up with your best point from those 2 as your judgment or your recommendation for this business in how they can obviously justify their significant rise in unemployment. Sorry, what I wanted to say there is you need to justify. So again, watch my video. It talks about how to justify, because that's you basically writing why you are picking the option you are going for. And therefore, once you have done your evaluation, you would then hopefully be up at least into the 10 to 12 points category and able to gain full points. So this is the particular end of this paper. I hope you found this video useful. Just remember to read the questions. If you're looking at 2-mark questions, you can pretty much guarantee that you're just going to be answering and making a point. Anything more than that, then we're going to be using the exam structure of point, explain, possibly point, explain, example, analysis as we get into 6-mark questions, and then the full exam structure twice. So we have 3 paragraphs for our 12-mark structure. So, good luck for your exam. Remember to take a black pen and a calculator into your exam, and we will obviously see you afterwards. Thank you very much.